Track 39. Section 4. You will hear a lecture on time. First, you will have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40. The subject of this series of lectures is horology, the science of measuring time, and we'll be looking at a few basic concepts in this lecture. The measurement of time has come a long way since ancient times. It began with such devices as the sundial, where the position of the sun's shadow marked the hour. Daylight was divided into 12 temporary hours. These temporary hours were longer in the summer and shorter in the winter, simply because the amount of daylight changes with the seasons. The earliest sundial we know comes from Egypt. It was made of stone and is thought to date from 1500 BC. Sundials were used throughout the classical world and, with time, evolved into more elaborate devices that could take into account seasonal changes and geographical positioning and reflect the hours accurately, no matter what the time of year. This was quite an achievement in technology. Today, sundials can be seen as decorative pieces in many gardens. In the 11th century, the Chinese invented the first mechanical clocks. They were large and expensive, and certainly not intended for individuals. However, this is the type of clock we are familiar with today. There have been many developments in clocks and watches since then, and they have been greatly improved. But if your clock or watch makes a ticking sound, then it could well be based on the mechanical movements the Chinese developed 1,000 years ago. However, timekeeping has moved on from the mechanical clock. Time has become so important that there is a series of atomic clocks around the world which measure international atomic time. Even though many countries have their own calendars, globalization has made it essential that we measure time uniformly. So that we know, for example, that when it's 6 a.m. in the United Kingdom, it's 2 p.m. in Beijing. This standard was set in 1958. Now these atomic clocks are situated in over 70 laboratories all over the world. There is so much to cover about the development of time measurement that I would like to refer you to the reading list. The core text is The Development of Time, Theory and Practice, but there are many other useful texts. A good grounding in the subject is given in Understanding Time by J.R. Beale. Although some sections lack detailed analyses, it does offer a good foundation. Also, Time, Concepts and Conventions is quite a useful read. You might think from the title that it's about the philosophy of time, but this isn't the case. Rather, it gives a good description of how different countries have different approaches to time in terms of calendars and days. Lastly, The Story of Time by David Harris analyses time in great detail, and I would recommend this book if you are aiming to specialize in horology. Now, we're going to continue with an in-depth look at lunar and solar cycles. That is the end of the listening test. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Track 38. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Well, we were thinking of presenting each animal with a picture and describing their physical characteristics.
OK, but not in too much detail. That's just background information.
We'll start with the jaguar. I'll introduce it by saying that the jaguar is a nocturnal animal and the only species of the genus Panthera to be found in the Americas. Like any cat, it has whiskers and it can move quickly. Its spine has great movement, meaning a jaguar can take long strides, sometimes up to 5.5 meters. This can make it a deadly predator, as you can imagine. Moving on to the fur, its fur is quite distinct. The markings are like black donut-shaped spots on its otherwise yellow fur. People often confuse them with a leopard for this reason. Now, the tail is interesting. Although people think that the tail has stripes on it, the fur on the tail actually is similar to the body, with black circles around the lower section. The jaguar is generally a creature to be feared. Oh, yes, I should have mentioned this earlier. Sorry, like most cats, it has sharp, retractable claws.
Yes, that's fine, but be careful. The jaguar is usually thought of as nocturnal, but strictly speaking, it's crepuscular. In other words, most active between dusk and dawn. But as long as you mention this, you can put it under the umbrella of nocturnal. Is that all?
Yes, I think so. Thanks, Professor.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Track 37. Section 3. You will hear 2 students and their tutor discussing a wildlife presentation. First, you will have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hi, Katie. Hi, Ian. Come on in.
Hi, Professor Gordon. We wanted to talk to you about our wildlife presentation next week.
Have you decided how to organise it?
Yes, Professor. At first, we were going to focus on the cat family, but then we decided to talk about nocturnal animals instead.
Yes, good idea. And how is your planning going?
It's going well. We think we have enough material for 20 minutes. The advantage is that there are so many visual aids we can use. We found lots on the internet which we think will be really interesting for people.
The problem is that this topic has been hard to narrow down. If anything, we've got too much information for just 20 minutes. How do you think we could narrow it down further?
It is a broad subject. There are a few ways you could do it, but I'd recommend just looking at a representative sample of nocturnal animals, just 4 or 5.
Yes, and maybe we could choose one animal from each continent, or a land creature, a marine creature and a winged animal.
I like the idea of separating it by different types of animals. And if we limit the detail, we'll definitely have enough time.
But don't limit the detail too much. Also, think how you're going to interest the audience.
Well, we're going to have a picture for each animal so we can talk through the picture.
That's a nice idea, but don't limit yourself to pictures. If you can find any clips of the animals, use them. Showing brief video clips can keep an audience interested.
I'll look on the internet tonight.
And think of questions to ask your audience. People like to be involved.
Yes, that's a great idea. Anyway, Professor, we've been practicing our presentation and we'd like to show you a small section. Is that okay?
Well, we just have a couple of minutes left, but go ahead.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Track 36. Now listen and answer questions 18 to 20. Naturally, there's a charge for all these attractions, but you can get 15% off if you have an Explorer pass. If you don't have a pass but would like one, the driver here has application forms. Just ask him for one and fill it out while on the tour. Then you hand it into the tour office. Normally, it costs $10, but this year it's just $7. When you hand it in, you'll get your picture taken for the card on the spot, and then your card is ready to use. Remember to show it whenever you pay for anything. The discounts apply not just to tourist attractions, but some bars and restaurants. Basically, everywhere you see a red Explorer symbol. We're coming up to the historical district now. If you'd like to look at That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Track 35. Section 2. You will hear a talk by a tour guide. First, you will have some time to look at questions 11 to 17. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 17. Welcome to San Fernando City Tours. I'm Mark, your tour guide. We have a lot to see in 3 hours, so make sure you're comfortable. We'll be traveling into the historical district first, and then into the town center. After that, it's out to the harbor, and we'll finish up at the lighthouse, just past the harbor. That will take us up to midday, and after that, you're free to do what you want. At the lighthouse, you'll have a chance to visit the tea room and take photographs of the magnificent coastline. Now, as we have only 3 hours, we won't be able to take you around the shopping district, but we think you'd prefer to look around the shops there in your own time anyway. San Fernando has some well-known tourist attractions, the lighthouse, for example, and the National Library. However, the little-known military museum is not to be missed. Be sure to visit before you leave. Now, there's a lot to do in San Fernando. Indeed, there really is something for everyone. For those who love the water, I can recommend a trip on the Seafarer, one of the most famous boats on the San Fernando River. It does an evening trip with a 3-course meal included. It's great fun for everyone, but especially for young people in their teens or 20s. After 9, there's a disco on the boat, and it gets really lively. Then there's a climbing wall near the town centre. It's incredibly popular, with a large wall for expert climbers and a smaller wall for novices. There's a junior wall and a creche, so it's a great day out for those of you with kids. And if you like walking, there's some great walking tours. The City Sights tour is highly recommended, as is the walking tour by the coast. But that one's only for the fit, not really suitable for children or the elderly. For more mature people, or those less able to get around, I would suggest a tour around the vineyards. It can be done in the luxury of a coach, and it's a wonderful way to explore the region's wines. Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 18 to 20. Track 34. Now listen and answer questions 8 to 10.
I'm just going to try this dress on and then look for shoes. Where are the changing rooms?
They're to the left of the store, right next to customer services.
And I want some shoes and accessories too. Where can I find them?
The accessories are in the women's wear department. The shoe department is right at the front of the store, between menswear and home furnishings. Oh, no, sorry. We've just moved the shoe department for the summer season. It's now very near the changing rooms, actually, straight in front of them.
Thanks so much for your help. And where can I pay for the other things?
The cash desk is at the front of the store, by the menswear.
Thanks.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Track 33. Practice exam. You will hear a number of different recordings and will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the questions and instructions, and you will have a chance to check your answers. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to section 1. Section 1. You will hear a customer asking for help in a shop. First, you will have some time to look at questions 1 to 7. You will see that there is an example which has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation related to this will be played first.
Excuse me, where are the dresses?
They're at the end of this aisle, on the left. Can I help you with anything? The assistant says the dresses are on the left, so left is written as the answer. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 7.
Excuse me, where are the dresses?
They're at the end of this aisle, on the left. Can I help you with anything?
Yes, maybe. I'm not from around here, so I don't know this store.
Well, I can help you with anything you need.
Fantastic. I'm actually down here for my brother's wedding, and I need something to wear. I've just started a new job, and I haven't had time to get anything yet. I'm looking for something smart. Maybe a new dress.
Well, what about this one?
I think it's too hot for long sleeves.
Yes. Well, this one has shorter sleeves, and it still has the bow, which I think is a nice detail. Or there's this patterned one.
I'm not keen on a pattern. I think I'll go for the one with the bow. Do you have it in a size 10?
Let me have a look. Yes, Here.
Great. I need a hat, and then I can try them on together.
What kind of hat are you looking for?
What about this one with the flower?
Yes, but if I may suggest, a taller hat would add to your height.
Really?
Yes, try this one.
Oh, I see what you mean.
We have this style with the single flower or with a small bunch, and it comes with a wide or narrow brim.
I like the narrow brim and just the one flower. Can I have a blue flower?
I'm afraid it just comes in cream.
Well, it goes with the dress anyway.
Great. I'll place an order and have the hat sent to you. It'll take about 2 days to be delivered. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
I need to take down a few details for delivery. Can I take your name?
Ellen Barker.
And the delivery address?
It'll be my brother's address. It's 14 Brightwell Avenue.
14... can you spell that, please?
Yes, BRIGHTWELL Avenue, Staybridge, Kent, DA4 7DF.
And can I take a contact number?
Yes, my mobile is 03221 777
03221 775.
No, it's a 4 at the end.
Oh, sorry, I've got it now. We can deliver on May the 12th. We can't specify an exact time, just morning or afternoon.
Any time in the early morning is fine.
And how would you like to pay?
Visa.
Great. That comes to £32.25.
OK, thanks.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 8 to 10. Track 32. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
Well, shall we look at our route now? Most of the speakers we're looking for are in California, so we could start there. We can spend 2 weeks travelling around and meeting people to get some background information and then start collecting data.
What do you think about beginning in the southwest corner of the state and visiting the Barona Reservation?
That's a good idea. We'll be able to get some interviews with native language speakers there, and then we could go to the Eastern Mountains to visit the local education authority of North County. They've got a native language project for school children.
Why there? Wouldn't it be better to go to the education department in San Diego? It's bigger.
But they focus more on Spanish and English bilingualism and less on native languages.
In that case, the North County Education Authority will be more valuable, so let's do that. After that, we could head southeast to the town of Bishop. There's a company there called Cotec, which employs only bilingual speakers. I've emailed the managing director, who's happy to give us an interview.
Oh, that's great work, James. It sounds like something we should definitely do.
Right, well, I'll email her to confirm.
Also, we should go to Sun City. It's this bilingual town in the south-central area of the region. They have a policy whereby all signs in the town must be in the local language as well as English. We can take photos of these signs. They'll make good visuals for our report.
But won't that be intrusive for the people who live there?
No, they're used to it. The village is used as a model for other communities who'd like to do the same thing.
In that case, let's add it to the itinerary.
Track 31. Section 3. You will hear 3 students discussing a language project. First, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
So, we need to get this field trip sorted out as soon as possible, don't we?
Yes, let's get started. James, have you worked out which 2 countries we should travel to?
Well, I thought we could go to the USA and Mexico because that's where the populations of most native languages are concentrated. But then I found out that the 3 languages we're most interested in are more widely spoken in Canada than Mexico, so I think we should go there instead.
OK. Anna, weren't you going to think about our research focus?
Yes, and I think I've found 2 areas that would work well. Firstly, use of the three languages, Nardini, Salishan and Algic among the younger generation, people up to the age of 25. I found out that although there are many older speakers of Algic, it's used much less by the young. In fact, young people under the age of 25 use both Nardini and Salishan more than Algic.
That's interesting. That means that native language use isn't really being affected by the older generations anymore.
So what's the other focus area then, Anna?
Well, it would be good to try to find out what affects changes in native language speaker populations.
You mean things like family life and the influence of popular culture or tourism?
Yes, areas like that, but not tourism or culture because they're too general. I think we should look at whether family has an impact in terms of passing on native language use, and possibly the effects of government language policy too.
Government figures can be deceptive, but they're still worth looking at. Maybe we should also focus on something like job creation and work statistics and the number of people who leave the USA to live in another country instead.
Yes. I think emigration would be as useful as language policy.
OK then, let's focus on those three as well as what happens in families.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have 20 seconds to look at questions 7 to 10. Track 30. So, Natalie, Louise, how are you doing with your report on encouraging people to speak local languages?
Fine, thanks, Dr. Phillips. It's been really interesting.
We've found lots of information which we've collated for our report.
Good. What are you going to focus on?
Well, many schools and colleges are doing good work promoting local languages, both as qualifications and in terms of after-school clubs.
And then there's the rise in popularity of minority language music, which seems to be driven by tourism. Tourists who are exposed to songs in indigenous languages become interested in learning those languages.
OK, now you need to be careful with these topics. They are fascinating, but you need to look at the influences which drive language learning. Education doesn't leave people much choice, and music isn't a strong enough factor.
Do you have any suggestions for us?
Well, what did we talk about in last week's seminar? Can you remember any of the real push factors?
Do you mean things like communication and relationships between companies and their workers?
It's much more powerful than music, don't you think?
Yes, I see what you mean. So I suppose our other idea isn't very strong either. We also thought about hobby groups, but I'm beginning to think they're less significant.
Yes, there aren't sufficient hobbyist groups to make a real difference to local language learning. But think about something else which is similar but reaches a much larger proportion of the population of a country or community.
Like online discussion groups. I remember in the lecture you talked about how the internet is fueling the increase in local languages through the World Languages Project.
This is more appropriate for your report because we can actually measure the amount of correspondence in each language and chart increases and decreases over time, which makes it a more rigorous form of analysis.
Of course. So we should definitely include that in our report.
It's becoming clearer now. We need to write about the larger factors involving commerce and online communication where we can record language usage.
I think it's better than looking at anecdotal information.
Thanks, Dr. Phillips.
Track 29.
Right, Harry, Rob, shall we get started on this presentation for European studies?
Well, how about if I start by talking about the central regions of Spain where most people speak Spanish?
Good idea. It's important we make it clear that the majority of the population use Spanish as their main language. Then I can introduce the Galician accent of the northwest.
But isn't Galician more of a dialect?
Oh, yes, you're right.
We've got to get our terminology correct because Spain is complicated in terms of languages and dialects and accents. How about we then move across to the northeast and I give details on the Basque language and how it's different from Spanish?
That seems logical, Stephanie. Do you also want to mention the other language in the northeast? It's Catalan, isn't it?
Yes. In fact, we should say it's the official language of the region to show how important it is.
So, what am I going to present?
We need to include something about accents and speaking styles, don't we?
Of course. I could explain the difficulties of understanding the accent in the south due to the fact that the locals speak quickly.
Excellent. Well, I think that covers everything. Shall we meet tomorrow to practice our presentation?
Track 28.
Morning, everyone. How are you?
Fine, thanks, Joe.
Yeah, fine, Joe. Have you managed to do much research on our minority languages project?
Well, Julia, I've been having some trouble finding information about the number of Cornish speakers in the UK. The records at the Office of National Statistics and the Cornish Language Council say different things, so I'm not sure who to believe.
Susan, have you got any information about this?
I was looking on the government's minority languages website, and it says that nearly half the minority language speakers in the UK are speakers of Welsh.
Are you sure it's nearly half? I thought the number of Gaelic and Welsh speakers was more or less the same.
It used to be when Gaelic was a compulsory subject in schools, but nowadays there are fewer speakers of Gaelic compared to Welsh. And apparently, with Cornish, it's difficult to know the exact percentage of the population who speak it, because most people only speak it to intermediate level. Very few people are fluent speakers.
I suppose that's why the statistics are different. Well, I think we should go with the more conservative estimate based on the number of fluent speakers.
I think you're right, which means that Cornish isn't spoken by nearly as many people as the other languages.
Yes, I think that's right too. Based on fluent speakers, that means that Welsh is the most widely spoken, and the numbers of Irish and Gaelic speakers are more or less the same.
Track 27. 1.
I stopped taking Greek lessons soon after I left school.
2.
How will local languages stay in use if fewer people learn them?
Track 26. 1. There are many South American Indian languages, none of which are related to Spanish. 2.
Studying accents is a good way to understand if a language is changing or not.
Track 25. Learning a language isn't easy. Learning a language isn't easy. Track 24. 1.
Many of the dialects in the world are gradually dying out.
2. Can you recommend ways in which I can improve my listening skills? 3.
I'm researching minority languages for my essay, so I went to the British Library to find out more information.
Track 23. 1. When I was living in Ireland, it was quite difficult to understand the local accent. 2.
Do you think it's important to sound like a native speaker?
3. I would have learnt Latin, but it wasn't an option when I was at school. Track 22. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
So, what does all this mean for the future? Well, after 10 years, I've decided that Benchmark needs a new vision for the future. I think it's time for us to divide up parts of the business into smaller units. Therefore, over the next 5 years, I aim to set up 2 small subsidiary companies in order to focus on international expansion in Europe and Asia. There are many organisations in emerging markets which could benefit from our experience and skills. Which leads me to the next point for future development, that of increasing our workforce. It's become clear that all our departments are understaffed, so we'll be taking on more employees over the next year. And the really good news is that to make us a desirable employer, all positions, current and future, will receive a salary increase of 10%. Lastly, I know that some people are worried about the financial aspects of having to move to another city as part of the restructure. So Benchmark will be providing a relocation package to all employees thus affected. This is because we would like you all to remain with the company for the foreseeable future.
That is the end of section 2. In the exam, you will have half a minute to check your answers. Track 21. Section 2. You will hear a talk about a company by a chief executive. First, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
I'd like to start by welcoming everyone to our annual meeting and thanking you all for your hard work. It's been a great year for us in terms of expansion and optimising business opportunities, and I'm pleased to say that Benchmark Consulting is a thriving, successful company. I'd like to take this opportunity to give you an overview of where the company began and where we'll be going in the next 10 years. For those of you who've been with the company since the start, sorry if you already know all this, but we have so many new staff members that I thought it would be worth filling in some background information. Benchmark Consulting was set up in 2000 by James Cox, a local entrepreneur who opened the first office in Melbourne. His real achievement was to create a new consultancy system which enabled clients to see which of the key areas of their business needed strengthening. James was incredibly successful with his system and started the company off on a journey of expansion. He retired in 2006 and was succeeded by Fred Montgomery. Fred shared James's views on consulting and continued the expansion. He increased revenue to $5 million and opened a new office in Perth. Soon the Benchmark Consulting system had become just that, the benchmark for many other consulting firms, and Fred took the opportunity to sell Benchmark for $10 million in 2008. Our new owners are, as you know, TFB Group Limited, and their investment has allowed us to build our brand new headquarters here in Sydney. TFB Group have brought us more exposure at a national level, and our most recent success has been winning a contract with the Government of Australia, advising on management restructuring. Now, we ourselves have done a little reorganisation over the last year to maximise our productivity. We've thought long and hard about the best location for the marketing department, as this is the key to facilitating our future business. Although Perth has a large number of marketing companies, which enables us to learn from our competitors, it's Melbourne that's the gateway to international connections, and therefore we've decided to move all marketing operations there. In terms of professional development, we wanted to optimise the training programs available to our staff because training is vital if we want to remain competitive. As a result, staff training will no longer be here in Sydney, but instead will take place in the Perth office, where new facilities have been installed. Finally, we've looked at how to optimise our back office administrative functions. Currently, each office has its own admin department. However, this is proving to be less efficient than we would like. In order to resolve this situation, all these functions will now be centralised here in Sydney.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 7 to 10. Track 20. Right, team. This afternoon, I want to go over the new marketing and advertising strategy so that everyone is clear on the streams for each of our product ranges. Let's start with toys for children. Now, last year, most of the advertising was done through leaflets posted through people's letterboxes across the city. However, the products are now selling well nationally in department stores rather than just in our local shop here in Leeds. So, we're going to expand the budget and use print media. By this, I mean the national newspapers, in order to maximise the exposure to these products. And despite the fact that our competitors advertise baby clothes on TV, we won't be using this method, as our statistics show that it's just not cost-effective. People don't pay much attention to TV ads for baby clothes, but we believe a picture in the newspapers will be much more attractive to potential customers. We're going with this method. As far as clothing for expectant mothers is concerned, the campaign will move from newspapers to the internet due to the fact that we've seen an increase in internet shopping for clothes among women in general. And finally, baby food. Adverts for this are difficult to place, and we've previously tried ads in all three media. Anyway, although our analysis has shown that the internet is one possibility, we're going to continue using television. Many other types of food are also advertised on TV, and happy mothers and babies make a very strong image. Track 19.
Welcome to this fire evacuation talk, everyone. I'm Melanie Brooks, the Fire Safety Manager here at Tech Base, and my office is on the 4th floor if you ever need to find me. Today, I want to run through the fire evacuation procedure now that we're in a new building. First of all, can I just remind you that if you hear the fire alarm, you should always head towards the main stairs in order to leave the building. Please assume that the alarm is real, except if it sounds at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. At this time, it's always a test, we hope. It's vital that you do not spend time collecting your bags or personal belongings because this wastes valuable evacuation time. When you have left the building, please look for the fire marshals who will be wearing fluorescent orange jackets. They'll show you where the waiting area is, but just so you know, it's the park at the rear of the office block. Your department has a fire safety officer, I believe it's Susan Jenkins, and it's her job to make sure that everyone who signed in has vacated the building. Susan will then tell the fire safety manager if there are any missing people. Can I also remind you that you mustn't enter the building again until the fire safety manager, in other words, me, tells you that the situation is no longer dangerous.
Track 18. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to talk to you all about the department restructure and how it will affect our work. As you know, the company is expanding, and this means we'll need to recruit more staff and optimise our ways of working. So I want to look at each of our teams and the changes which are planned to start next month. The sales team, headed by Gary Wilson, will be responsible for not only increasing the amount of business we do with our current customers, but also searching out new clients. As this is likely to be a labour-intensive task, Gary's team will need more staff, which is where Linda French's human resources team comes in. Linda and Gary will collaborate on finding and employing 20 new sales members as soon as possible. However, not all staff will be recruited from outside. If this company is going to continue to thrive, each of the current team managers will need an assistant, and these positions will be internal appointments. Human Resources are sending out an email to all staff this week, asking them if they would like to apply for one of the new positions, and interviews will begin next month. Now, in order for the sales team to increase revenue, the research and development team have to come up with some innovative products which will be better than those offered by other companies. Therefore, Zoe's team will start a month-long project to learn more about what our competitors make to help inform our design process. Their target will be to design and create 2 new ranges of products this year. As always, if any of you have an idea for a product, please contact Zoe about it. All ideas are welcome. Lastly, but just as importantly, I'd like to talk about Ian Smith's team. Obviously, aftercare service is crucial to the expansion of the company, so IT support will be making sure that all our customers are called to discuss our service as part of the follow-up system. Ian's team will also be upgrading our client support package to facilitate 24-hour access, 7 days a week. Ian believes strongly that this will increase our competitiveness and be a real selling point for potential customers. Track 17. 1. Revenue. 2.
Thrive.
3. Commission. 4.
Collaborate.
5. Franchise. 6.
Restructure.
7. Audit. 8.
Subsidiary.
Track 16. Now listen and answer questions 4 to 10.
OK, follow me.
let's go up the stairs to the main equipment room. As you can see, we have all the treadmills, bikes and rowing machines in here, and the weights are in the corner.
Great. And is that the pool over there? Can I use that with my membership?
Yes, at any time. Just go through the glass doors on the left. As you can see, the pool is dominated by the diving board at the far end. It's impressively tall. And on the right-hand side of the pool, you can see we have 2 lanes. The first one is a slow lane for those who are trying to improve their fitness. It gets really busy. The lane on the far right is what we call the club lane, because we reserve this for people who have membership. It is slightly less busy and the members can get a really good workout in it.
That sounds great.
Yes, it is good. And then near us, you can see a smaller area sectioned off nearly halfway across the pool. This area is where we put the school groups which come in the late afternoons during the week, usually from about 4. We keep them confined to that space so that the other end can be used for free swimming.
And what is the little round pool for?
We call that the toddler's pool. It's not very deep, and the mothers often bring their children in to teach them to swim in it.
Great. Well, I'm glad I can use the pool. It will be good to vary my exercise.
Definitely. When do you think you'll be coming?
Most likely in the evenings. I'd like to come on Saturdays, but I often work then, so I think I'll have to miss that day and then come on Sundays.
Oh, so you'll be a regular visitor? That's great news. Can I ask why you chose Smith's Gym?
Well, actually, the television advert prompted me to join. It makes exercising look so much fun. I always thought going to the gym would be monotonous.
No, not at all. It can be a lot of fun.
My aim is to reach my optimum fitness. At the moment, I think I'm a bit unhealthy, so I'd like to change that.
Well, give it some time and I'm sure you will. Now, shall we go back and complete the payment details?
That is the end of section 1. In the exam, you will have half a minute to check your answers. Track 15. Section 1. You will hear a conversation in a gym between a customer and a receptionist. First, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 1 to 3. You will see that there is an example which has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation related to this will be played first.
Hello and welcome to Smith's Gym.
Hi there. I'd like to become a member.
Yes, of course. We just need to fill out a couple of forms and then I can show you around the gym.
That would be great.
Let's start with the membership form. Can I have your name, please?
Yes, sure. Brad Simmons.
Is that Simmons with a D or without?
Without. S-I-M-M-O-N-S.
The customer says that his surname is Simmons, so this is written as the answer. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 3.
Hello and welcome to Smith's Gym.
Hi there. I'd like to become a member.
Yes, of course. We just need to fill out a couple of forms and then I can show you around the gym.
That would be great.
Let's start with the membership form. Can I have your name, please?
Yes, sure. Brad Simmons.
Is that Simmons with a D or without?
Without. S-I-M-M-O-N-S.
Got it. And can I take a contact number, please?
Yes, sure. It's 04983 55521.
OK. 04983 55531.
No, it's 21 at the end.
Great. And do you have an email address?
Yes, brad07@elemnet.com. That's ELEMNET.com.
Right. Now, we've got 3 membership types here. Bronze, which is just off peak and costs £21 a month. Silver, which means you can use the gym at all times. This is £36.50. Or for just £5 more, you can get a gold membership, which gives you free access to the squash and tennis courts and all classes.
For now, I think I'll just take the silver.
That's fine, sir. That'll be £36.50 a month.
Great. When can I start?
Well, you'll need to have an induction first. We have spaces at 2:30, 4:45 and 8:15 tomorrow. Would any of these be suitable?
I can't do tomorrow. Do you have anything for Saturday?
Is that the 12th of November?
No, it's the 11th.
Yes, that's fine. Would 2:30 be okay?
That's fine.
I'll book you in with our trainer, Rob Ellis. Now, would you like me to show you around?
That would be great.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have 20 seconds to look at questions 4 to 10. Track 14.
Hi, Penny. How are you doing? Have you just been to the gym?
Hi, Debbie. I'm good, thanks. Yes, I've just finished a workout. How are you?
Yes, good. I'm planning on going to the gym later, but it's hard finding the time now I've got a child.
I bet it is. Have you tried any of their new exercise classes?
Yes, I tried some last week. I wanted to go to yoga, but it was full up. I went to the dance class instead. It was really fun. Oh, and kickboxing last Thursday too. That was exhausting.
Well, you didn't miss much at yoga. I went there last Friday and it was far too hard. I couldn't do most of the exercises.
Oh no. Are you going to try anything else?
Well, I was thinking of trying the aerobics class.
My friend did that one and said the instructor was awful.
Well, I'll probably give it a miss then. I've got to go to a conference next week anyway, so I'll be away from Tuesday to Friday.
Oh, lucky you.
Track 13.
OK, Alice, I just need a few more details to start your membership. Your full name is Alice Wilson, yes?
No, Watson.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Which age range are you?
Well, I'm just out of the 16 to 25 bracket. I'm 26 now.
Great. 26 to 35.
Yes.
And do you have any health problems which may affect your exercise?
No, I don't have any health conditions.
I'll put none. Do you do any exercise at the moment?
Not much. I exercise a couple of times a week.
And what do you do?
Well, I used to play tennis, but I stopped. Now I only go swimming.
OK. And why have you decided to join up?
Just to improve my fitness. I don't want to lose any weight or build muscles or anything.
Fine. Well, I would recommend doing the Level 2 workout programme to begin with. It takes about 40 minutes to do the whole programme. I'll get you an information sheet so you can see what it involves.
Track 12.
Thank you for taking the time to see me today, Mr. Jones. I'd just like to take a minute to outline our new step machines.
No problem. I'm interested in getting a few. We don't have any in the gym yet.
That's great. Well, let me talk you through the build of the step machine. If you have a look at the sales brochure, you can see what they look like on page 14.
OK.
These machines are 2 meters tall, so they tend to stand out. The tallest part is the holding frame. At the top there, we have the main grips. These grips, when they are held, monitor heart rate so that the user can check they are working out at their optimum heart rate.
That's great. And where does this rate show up?
They'll be able to see it on the screen below. This screen is fully digital and shows not only their heart rate, but the number of steps they've taken and the distance they've travelled. On the panel there, they also have a selection of workouts. They can set it by distance or time, or by the amount of calories they want to burn. They can even set it to climb a famous mountain or hill, or walk up the Leaning Tower of Pisa, for example.
That's great. I like those more fun settings.
And the great thing is you can have people climbing up Mount Everest, for example, every day for 10 years, and this machine will still be in perfect working order. It's made to last. It not only has a metallic spine, but durable pedals made from the most high-tech materials on the market.
And the machine works via a wheel in the centre. That's unusual, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but we find a central wheel lasts much longer than a pump system. The central wheel is attached to a bracket which ensures each step movement is as smooth as the last. The final feature I should point out to you is the side supports, which ensure safety for all machine users. If users feel tired, they can hold on to these and slow down their stepping.
I see. Well, I think I might take 3 of them. Track 11.
Excuse me, where can I fill up my water bottle?
There's a water cooler just inside the main doors. Is this your first time here?
Yes, I just had my induction last week. I'm Anna.
Hi, I'm John. If you have any problems and I'm around, please just ask.
Have you been coming here long?
Yes, I've lived here all my life, just a couple of miles away. I started coming here when I was just a kid. I suppose I'm quite a faithful member. My brother and father come here too.
Wow, that's impressive.
Thanks. I enjoy it so much because it basically gives me so much energy for the day. It's unusual that I'm here at this time. I work pretty hard, and so I try to fit it in before work usually. I start work at 7, so I usually get in here by about 5:30.
Oh, it must still be dark at that time.
Yes, it is.
That must take some willpower.
It does, but it's worth it. You should try an early session. It really makes you feel good about the day. How often are you planning on coming?
I was thinking maybe just twice a week at the beginning and then build up from there. What do you think?
That's a good idea. When are you thinking of coming?
Probably evenings. Is it generally very busy then?
It can be. I came in the evening yesterday and it was quite busy. In fact, a funny thing happened. I was on the treadmill and suddenly water started hitting me. It was the fire alarm. The sprinklers had gone off. I was absolutely soaked. It was the first time anything like that has happened, but it was pretty funny. Fortunately, it was a false alarm.
So much excitement at the gym. I think I'm going to enjoy this.
Track 10. Section 4. You will hear a lecture on immigration patterns. First, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 1 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 10. This morning, I'd like to focus on New York as a model for understanding immigration patterns in relation to national rather than international change. Firstly, it is important to understand that migration patterns are primarily affected by the rules of immigration, which determine the conditions of entry. After that, internal changes can affect patterns considerably. To highlight my first point, let's study this diagram of Ellis Island and the process of admitting immigrants in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Upon arrival at Ellis Island, people underwent a series of examinations and questions before being allowed to enter the US. First of all, there was a medical inspection to ensure the immigrants were not bringing in any contagious diseases. Anyone who did not pass the medical examination was refused entry to New York and sent home on the next available ship. If the examination was passed, immigrants were required to take a further examination, this time a legal examination to establish whether they had any criminal convictions. After this, immigrants were able to change currency and purchase tickets for onward rail travel from New York. Having completed this simple process, immigrants were told to wait. This wait could be as long as 5 hours before boarding a ferry to take them to New York City. This simple system allowed millions of immigrants to enter the US and is largely responsible for the ethnic makeup of the city today. Even though the immigrants themselves may have had a variety of reasons for deciding to migrate, it was only possible because of US national immigration laws. Moving on to the second point, how changes within a country can have as much or more of an effect than those outside the country, various parts of New York have changed radically in their ethnic makeup over the last 200 years. Communities became wealthier, governments introduced new laws, and employment opportunities came and went. These factors affect where people choose to live or force them to move to somewhere different. For example, most people think that the population has changed in Manhattan due to the rise of its importance as a financial trade center, which is true to some extent. But, like the Ellis Island example, a change in politics, namely a change of mayor, allowed the city to boom as a financial center, and this resulted in different types of people moving to the area. Brooklyn is an interesting example too, and we'll be looking at it as our case study later in the lecture. Whereas it used to be a predominantly working-class area of the city and therefore attracted unskilled migrant workers, nowadays its fame as a centre for up-and-coming artists and musicians means it has attracted a new and much more diverse population of middle-class residents. Finally, Queens has shown a dramatic change in its population over the last 50 years due to the airports there. This means that the number of airline staff living in the area has dramatically increased and changed the nature of the local population. Finally, I'd like to use Brooklyn as a case study of local change. Brooklyn's population has changed significantly over the years, and this can most easily be seen in its economic activity. Tracing the Brooklyn industries back from the current financial services companies to manufacturing in the 1950s to shipbuilding in the 1900s, we can map this onto average wages and therefore the type and class of resident. And this has affected the population density too, which has been steadily increasing over the past 100 years from 1.5 million in 1900 through to 2 million in the middle of the 20th century to the 2.3 million inhabitants today. In fact, Brooklyn is suffering from considerable overpopulation now. But this large population increase was due not to employment, but the building of the subway, which linked Brooklyn to other areas of New York. Prior to this, at the beginning of the 20th century, the only way of transportation was the Brooklyn Bridge. Another factor, which traditionally increases the desire for the middle classes to live in a particular place, is the extent and type of local heritage, especially for those people with young children. In Brooklyn, this is evident in the increase in population after the construction of Coney Island. The modern-day equivalent of this is the restoration of Prospect Park, which has brought more middle-income families into the area. That is the end of the listening test. In the exam, you will have half a minute to check your answers. Track 9.
Many people have immigrated to Britain and become citizens over the last 200 years, and in today's lecture, I'd like to look at the various laws or Acts of Parliament introduced to deal with those people who came to live in Britain. In 1793, there was the Aliens Act, which the British government introduced to control the number of refugees fleeing to Britain to escape the revolution in France. Compared to today, when refugees have to complete a long and complicated application process before arrival, in 1793, all that was required by the authorities was that individuals had to register at the port where they arrived. The collection of personal information started in 1844 with the Naturalisation Act, which was updated in 1870. The main difference in the 1870 Act was that applicants who wanted to stay in Britain had to have served the Crown or to have lived in the country for at least 5 years before being considered. Both these acts allowed the government to control the number of people coming into the country. These changes were fairly insignificant regarding people's freedoms and the amount of state intervention involved. However, in the 20th century, this began to change. The Alien Registration Act was introduced in 1914, and when the First World War broke out, all aliens over the age of 16 had to register at local police stations, be of good character, and demonstrate a working knowledge of English. The reason for this act was to create a feeling of patriotism among migrant communities and also to stop spies from Europe infiltrating the country. And after the Second World War, the meaning of British nationality was redefined again, this time to encourage residents from British colonies to come to Britain to help rebuild the country. This was the British Nationality Act of 1948. The condition was that potential migrants had to demonstrate that they wanted to work and were fit and healthy. Finally, there was the Commonwealth Immigration Act of 1962. Legislation was passed to restrict the number of Commonwealth immigrants to Britain. Although many people still wanted to come to Britain to obtain good jobs, the Act now meant applicants had to get work permits, which were given mostly to skilled immigrants such as doctors. In the next session, I want to look at more contemporary acts. For instance, the one that was...
Track 8. Today, I'd like to continue from last week's lecture by looking at what helps people successfully integrate into a new culture. Whereas the reasons for migration are nowadays fairly easy to identify and largely related to employment opportunities or political instability, the factors behind being able to adapt to the new culture and create a new life are considerably more complex. Let's start with an overview of the issues as shown on this diagram. Starting on the left of the diagram, there are two lists of factors, internal and external. It's important to notice that the internal factors, in other words, those based on an individual's personality, are divided into positive factors, trusting others and acknowledging that people are different, and negative, being afraid and being suspicious of people. You might think that the list of negative factors would include discrimination, but it doesn't because discrimination comes under the larger category of fear. Now, what you should also notice is that the external factors are not labelled in this way. It's much more difficult to know how to measure the effects of external factors and whether they actually are external or not. The influence of family relationships, climate, beliefs and values, and the ability to communicate in the language of the new culture have wide-ranging effects which are difficult to measure and can distort any research. Now focus on the centre of the diagram, and you'll see this phrase, coping strategies. This is important because studies have shown that people who integrate well into a new culture, and that is any culture by the way, are those who have eradicated any negativity and made positive choices and adopted coping strategies such as observing people and taking time to listen and ask questions in order to diminish the effects of culture shock. What we have observed is that people who demonstrate positive coping strategies, such as observing, listening and questioning, end up by understanding the host culture better and integrating quicker and more successfully. However, those who choose to be critical of the differences and therefore react negatively to the host culture are likely to have increased feelings of alienation. This alienation can tail off and become the beginning of acceptance if a person has some positive experiences, but it usually deteriorates quickly into isolation. Track 7.
OK, so to finish, I want to look at the resources available for researching UK census information for the essay you'll be writing at the end of this module. There are many resources for the study of the civilian population and family history out there, ranging from public to academic to commercial. Some are available for the public to access free of charge, whilst others are only available by payment of fees or restricted to academics and subject to registration. Some are more appropriate to family or genealogical investigation, others to historical population research. So, if we start at the beginning of the list on your handout, you'll see firstly there is the Family Records Centre based in central London. The centre and their website are available to anyone in the country who has an interest in researching demographic data. Their work might be useful to give you an overview of the general sorts of data and services available. Unfortunately, you do have to pay a registration charge of £20 for a year's access to their material. The next resource on the list is Genes Reunited, which is mainly for people who want to find out more about their ancestors. There are some good interactive tools on this website, especially the one which shows you how to manipulate the National Census Association's statistical data. Although Genes Reunited is very useful, it is used by a range of businesses and therefore accessing the site will cost you. Now, the third item on the handout is the National Census Association, which contains the most up-to-date data as it's compiled from official government census data every 10 years. Both companies and individuals are able to access all their resources without payment, so this may be a good place to start your research. Finally, I'd just like to draw your attention to 2 journals at the bottom of the handout. The first one, Journal of Historical Migration, is not actually a journal, but a collection of articles on a website. Anyway, you might like to take a look at it because it has several articles on the importance of recording census data from a historical research perspective. This site is available to the general public, so you don't have to pay or register. The other one, the Journal of Social Demography, is only available using your university online journal's login details, as it can only be accessed by those studying or researching in higher education. Right, well, that should be enough reading for you.
Track 6. Now listen and answer questions 8 to 10.
So, our project is going to cover 3 main areas. Firstly, comparing the main forms of alternative energy, solar, wind, wave, and biofuels in terms of production costs. Secondly, we'll take solar energy as an example and do a cost prediction. And lastly, we'll analyze whether they're likely to replace traditional fossil fuels in the future.
That sounds like a comprehensive project with a good focus. Now, what data are you going to use and what approach will you use for the analysis?
Now that's something we do agree on. We want to use the reports you gave us in our last lecture and some statistics from the Government, Environment and Energy Department. In terms of analysis, we're going to use a cross-referencing method where we compare each of the government reports with the Robertson report and highlight any differences. Then we'll analyze these to see why the differences exist and where more research needs to be done.
That is the end of section 3. In the exam, you will have half a minute to check your answers. Track 5. Section 3. You will hear students and a tutor discussing an energy project. First, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 1 to 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 7. Good morning, Phil. Jackie. I hope your project is going well.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Hi, Mr. Jackson. Well, we've made a start on analysing the different forms of renewable energy, but unfortunately, we don't really agree on some points.
Okay, why don't we talk about it?
Well, Jackie believes that all forms of renewable energy are beneficial economically, whereas I doubt that that's true for all of them.
Such as?
Such as wind, wave, and solar energy, because they're less reliable.
That's a valid point, but I don't think that's a large enough factor to disregard it completely.
Exactly. That's what I said.
However, another drawback is that they're generally very expensive to produce.
Yes, you're right, and that is a concern when evaluating their usefulness in future.
I agree with you to a point, but it's likely that the cost will come down. I read a report in the Journal of Environmental Science that estimates the cost would fall by 20% over the next 10 years, which is significant, isn't it?
Absolutely, Jackie. But you need to think about how difficult it is to predict the future cost of non-traditional energy sources before you believe the report. Remember, in your project, I want to see evidence of critical analysis. Make sure you've analyzed all the information rather than just accepting the information that you agree with. Also, it's very important that you demonstrate wide reading around the subject.
I know. It's just that I'm not convinced that it's going to continue to be that expensive, especially if there's a demand from consumers.
Well, what about if we analyze the costing process as part of our project?
That's an excellent idea, Phil. Okay, so let's imagine that we want to forecast the cost of producing solar energy. How could we do that, Jackie?
Well, I think we'd have to start by working out how many hours of daylight there are in the UK per year.
The Meteorological Office would have data on that.
Then estimate the number of hours of sun to get a rough total.
And then I suppose we'd need to work out how much it would cost to supply the average home with solar power, and then extrapolate that to get a number for the whole country.
Good. And don't forget the price of power conversion stations. This will have a significant impact on overall expenditure. And there's one more factor you haven't taken into account yet regarding the consumers.
Whether they would change from traditional to renewable energy?
No, but think about what might make them change.
Oh, yes. How much they would be willing to pay.
Exactly. Well done. Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 8 to 10. Track 4.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late.
Don't worry, Hannah. We've only just started. We thought we should go over the theories we've studied so far, so we're ready for the seminar discussion on Thursday afternoon.
Of course, you're right. I don't think I can remember all the theories related to consumer energy consumption.
No, Hannah. That's the reading for Friday's lecture. Thursday's seminar discussion is about the current thinking on alternative energy.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I'm a bit disorganised at the moment.
Never mind. So, Mike, what do you think about the academics' point of view on nuclear energy?
Well, I think I have to agree with them on price being a factor for choosing nuclear in the long term.
Me too. It's definitely the most cost-effective measure. Don't you agree, Hannah?
To start with, I didn't, but the text Professor Edwards gave us persuaded me. The only thing that concerns me is that there have been some disasters in various parts of the world.
Yes, some texts warn of the dangers of nuclear power, using previous disasters as examples.
I know what you mean, but I suppose the risk is minimal these days. What do you think about wind and solar energy in terms of the price in relation to the advantages? For me, they're just not worth it. Both are expensive, and it's difficult to predict the amount of energy each one will produce.
You know, Mike, I'm afraid I don't share your opinion. This text here talks about the likelihood of improved technology increasing the amount of energy and reducing the costs in the future.
Yes, but that's not enough proof to be sure of the relationship between the costs and the benefits.
Exactly. The evidence seems incomplete to me.
Well, that's something we can follow up on with the rest of the group in the seminar on Thursday.
Track 3.
Hi there, guys. Nice to see you.
And you. So, are we going to finalise what we're doing for the environmental science presentation today?
I hope so. The presentation is next week.
Actually, I wanted to talk to you about this because I think we need to take out some of the information we're including.
Oh, really? Like what, Shirley?
Well, I'd like to suggest taking out the background details. I think it's just too much information to fit into 10 minutes.
But isn't it important to make sure the audience understands the context?
I don't think so. And anyway, we could include the background details on the handout.
OK, I'm with you on that. Chris, what do you think?
Yes, OK, that's fine. I'll add the details to the handout. Anything else?
Yes. I'm not sure whether the solar energy statistics will be too much for the audience to take in. There's a lot of numbers and graphs. Can we put the statistics on a handout too?
I see your point. We don't want people looking at lots of numbers while we're speaking.
But without the statistics, I don't see how we can support our main ideas.
Actually, you're right, Tom. I hadn't thought about that. In that case, can we delete the diagrams? It's going to take too much time to explain them.
Let's think about that a bit more. If we have to choose between taking out the statistics or the diagrams, I think we should opt for the diagrams. They're less crucial to the presentation. What do you both think?
I think it's going to work much better than the original plan we had.
Absolutely. We won't have to worry about talking for longer than 15 minutes if we remove the diagrams and focus on the main ideas and statistics. Shall we all meet again tomorrow to finalise the details? Track 2.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, John. How's your essay going?
Not so good, actually. Would you be able to help me with it?
Of course. What do you want to know?
Well, just the type of information you're going to write about. I won't copy you. I just want some ideas to get me started.
Well, Mr. Jones advised us to focus on just 2 or 3 forms of non-traditional energy for our evaluation. So I think I'm going to choose solar. It's fairly easy to evaluate.
Are you going to explain both the positive and negative aspects?
Well, Mr. Jones warned us not to get too involved in the ethical aspects of the topic, so I'm going to structure my essay by using the advantages and disadvantages of each energy form. That's why I also want to talk about biofuels. I think there are more disadvantages.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Using the negative points of one to highlight the positive points of the other. That's a smart idea. And what about the third energy source?
I was having difficulty choosing between nuclear and wind because they're both problematic, but I've decided to do nuclear for my presentation instead.
Thanks, Mary. Chatting to you has helped me think a bit more clearly about my essay.
That's fine. Good luck with it.
Collins English for Exams. Listening for IELTS. Copyright HarperCollins Publishers 2011. CD 2. Track 1.
Hi, James. How's your alternative energy research project going?
To be honest, I'm a bit confused about how to do the research for all the different energy types.
Well, the first thing you do is to make sure you focus your question, otherwise you'll have too much to read and you won't be able to select the key arguments.
So how do I do that?
Start with the general topic of alternative energy and then keep asking questions until you've narrowed the topic down to one particular area. Then, when you have your question, make a list of the reading you will need. This list should be general to give you some background, but remember you'll need to focus on the issues related to the question, so the reading list should also be specific to the actual energy source you've chosen, whether it's wind or solar or wave power.
And then start reading?
Absolutely. You need to start straight away, but don't forget to make notes as you read. Otherwise, you won't be able to keep track of ideas for future reference purposes.
Yes, that makes sense. I think that's my main problem. I don't recall where I've read different ideas, so I can't find them again later. And my friends have warned me that not recording ideas in a system can really hinder your progress.
Your friends are right. It's a common problem amongst students. You need a system. Anyway, once you've done the reading and made all your notes, you need to organise them so that you can analyse and think about what you've read.
But I prefer to just start writing and then go back and look at my notes later.
I wouldn't recommend it. I think you need to give yourself more time to digest the material and arrange it into some kind of system ready for analysis in terms of relevance to your research question.
Well, that's a great help. Thank you, Professor Jenkins.
You're welcome. Come and see me again if you have any more problems.